Hey team, I just wanted to say hello, and tonight we're actually doing something a little different. We are doing a rerun of a previous message, but that's all because this Sunday is going to be a special Sunday. If you're joining us online on the youth site, then that means you're going to see a special guest. And so this week I'm kind of helping that special guest prepare his talk, prepare his testimony. And you might know him by the name of Daniel Hunter. So Daniel's going to be speaking it up this Sunday, and that's pretty exciting. So I hope you guys enjoy it, and I hope you guys tune in and engage. And while he's speaking for the youth, I'm going to be speaking for main church, big service, big nothing, just the general adults, whatever you want to call it. But that's where I'll be, and Daniel will be with us in the youth. So I hope you guys are there, and again, enjoy this rerun. Bye. Hey, good morning everybody, and hope you're having a fantastic week, or that you're going to start your week, or maybe you're in the middle of your week. Whatever it is, I hope you're doing great, because it's a great day. Always is a great day. His mercies are made new every morning. So keep that in mind if you're feeling down, or feeling blue, or feeling not happy, or maybe remember that to feel happy, or that you are feeling happy. Anyways, so in the middle of Matthew chapter 7, we get into these parables of Matthew 7, first of all, is in the middle of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, one of the most famous sermons probably ever preached ever in history. And Jesus is doing it right here. In Matthew chapter 7, there's this part where he gets to talking about true and false disciples. And then from there, he kind of leads into the wise builder and the foolish builder. And what I find super interesting is at the beginning of this, right before this parable starts, he opens up with, everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, they're not going to inherit the kingdom of heaven. The only people who truly do are those who do the will of my Father. And the reason why I find this so interesting is because, he says that, and then he lists a few things that I'm like, that sounds exactly like people doing the will of the Father. I mean, they're prophesying, they're casting out demons, they're doing miracles. I mean, doesn't that sound like, someone doing the will of his Father, that they would be doing those types of things? I mean, it sounds like really, really great stuff, but even with all those great things that it sounds like those people are doing, it says that Jesus will look at them, and this is the part that scares me, because he will plainly stare at them and say, away from me, you evildoer, I never knew you. And again, that's just a little frightening, because again, these people are casting out demons, they're prophesying in his name, they're performing these miracles, and how is it they're doing all those things and I'm doing nothing? And yet Jesus still looks at them and says, I never knew you. If he says that to them, well, how much more will he be able to say that to me? But I think this is the point in him actually saying that, is that sometimes you can feel like you're winning, like you're doing good, like you're doing all the right things that you should be doing. But I think Jesus is trying to point it out that, maybe the good that you're doing, maybe the stuff that you're trying to accomplish, maybe the stuff that you're winning at, you're just winning at the wrong things. You're trying to do good in the wrong places. Your heart just isn't in the right spot. Really, it's just maybe you're winning at the things that ultimately don't matter in life. Now, I don't know if you've ever played the game Yahtzee, but I love Yahtzee. I don't know why, but I feel like I'm really, really good at just being lucky. Like when it comes to Yahtzee, I can get like 2 Yahtzees in one single round or something like that. My wife hates it because she's just like, that's not possible. How is it that you're rolling so well? Like, how is it that you call out what you want before you actually get it? And I can see why that's frustrating when you're playing with somebody so good at a game of chance. I mean, that's literally in the title, isn't it? Yahtzee, a game of chance. If you've ever played Yahtzee and if you've ever played poker, then there is some crossover there. I mean, you have things like in the scoring system, like 3 of a kind, or a straight, or a full house, all those types of things. Like what you play in Yahtzee, there's some transfer over into poker. You get those same hands and you score accordingly to those things. Well, there's this one time when I was playing poker, and I'm not like an avid poker player. I played a few times, and this was like one of those few times, and me knowing that Yahtzee kind of crossed over into poker, I thought well, I'll be okay. I kind of know how things work, and I'll be fine. And I remember, it was like maybe my second time playing and I was like, oh my gosh, I have such a good hand. I think it was like a flush straight or something, and where all the suits are the same and you get them all in order. I'm like, I'm just gonna win the pot right now. And I remember I keep betting and I'm putting chips in and like, slowly other players are getting out. They're like, no, that's way too much. My hand's not that good. And finally it comes down to me and this other guy. And we're like, okay, what's going to happen here? And so I'm raising, he's calling and raising, and then, I'm calling his bet, and then I'm raising that, and like, it's crazy. I'm down to pretty much my last chips. I don't have very much more. And like, it's like that time that we show our cards. And so right when we start to show our cards, I'm super confident. As I laid my cards down, I'm already pulling in that pile of chips and being like, this is all mine, baby. And, as they're looking at my cards, they're like, dude, what are you doing? I'm like, what are you talking about? I got a straight flush. Like, that's like the second highest hand you can get, right? And they're like, yeah, but you need all 5 cards to be a straight flush. Like, that's how it works. What? And they're like, you're missing a card. What? And this is when I learned that not all the rules from Yahtzee transfer over to poker. You see, in Yahtzee, you can get something called a small straight, where it's just 4 consecutive numbers in a row. In poker, they don't have that. Yeah, in poker, there's only 1 straight, and it's a large straight. There's no such thing as a small straight. So you shouldn't bet all your money on something that doesn't exist. You see, I had built this pile of chips on something that actually didn't exist. And, looking at us both poker players, it looked like we were both very confident in what was going to happen, that we were both going to win, that we both had the best hand. And it wasn't until we had to reveal our cards that, well, I didn't have it. I was building, my wealth, my security on something that actually didn't exist. I was winning just at the wrong game. I should have been playing Yahtzee instead of playing poker. And I got to tell you, that just overwhelming feeling of embarrassment, like, I felt it. I really did. And it was because I was playing the wrong game. But imagine this with Jesus. Like, you're playing the game of life with Jesus and you're betting all on something. People like to say that they're neutral, but no, you're actually betting on something even when you don't think you are, because there's no one neutral in this game called life. You're either betting on Jesus or something else. And so if you're not betting on Jesus, well, then there's that point where you're like, okay, am I betting on something that actually doesn't exist? Like, what if I'm winning, but at the wrong game? What if I'm doing all the good stuff, but for the wrong reason? And this is why that saying for me is so scary with Jesus, that he can look at all these people casting out demons, performing miracles, prophesying in his name, and still look at them and say that you've been missing the point, that you've been winning at the wrong game. It's not all those things that I've desired. I've just desired your heart, and I don't have it. And so Jesus goes on to illustrate this more by talking about the foolish builder and the wise builder. He said that the first builder built his house on rock, and the foolish builder built his house on sand. And it's the same house. I mean, we don't hear of there being any differences structurally, but the difference comes when this storm comes. And this storm comes in, and you find at the end of the story, or at the end of the parable, that one house comes crashing down while the other one stays firm in its foundation. And you can tease this out a little bit more. It's like, you have 2 houses that look identical. There's nothing different about them. They're all shiny and new. They look good. You perfect. You want to move into that house. Like, this is your, and you can tease this out a little bit that, you look at these 2 houses and from the outside, they look identical. They're all nice and shiny and new. This is something that you want to move into. I mean, it's like your dream house, but yet the only difference comes when something bad happens, when there's a storm, when you're faced with challenges, when you're faced with, something that you really have to struggle with. And it really comes down to their foundations. And who are you in this story? Are you the wise man or are you the fool? You really don't know until you will have to face a storm. You don't know who you are until that storm comes into your life. Because if you think about the people around you, you'll notice that there are a lot of nice, kind, behaved, well-mannered people around you. And sometimes it's really hard to distinguish, well, are they a Christian or are they not a Christian? Because everyone's somewhat a good person, right? You are a good person. Your neighbor's probably a good person. The person across the way from you is probably a good person. Everyone looks the same and for the most part acts the same on the outside. But when the storms come, what goes on eternally? What is your foundation on? And sometimes I like to think about it like this, how everyone is like on the exterior looks the same. They're just like these houses. You don't know what's going on in the foundation. Like, what is their morals built upon? What is, how do they, process their decisions? And the question that I like to ask is, what will good people do when faced with having to make the right decision, but that right decision will hurt them personally? So you have this decision, you have to make a decision, and the right decision, doing the right thing, will cost you something. Or what will you do when, you have to make a decision and no one's looking? Will you do the right thing when it might cost you something? Or will you do the wrong thing that no one will see, no one will know about, and you benefit from? So it's like, okay, I'm going to benefit from it. If I make the wrong decision or if I do the wrong thing, no one will know about it, and I'll get a little bit of a kickback from it. Are you willing to do that wrong thing? So really the big questions of these two things is, what will you do when no one is looking? And what will you do when everyone is looking? And that's a big question, isn't it? And how honest are we really willing to be with ourselves? Sometimes I ask myself these questions and I answer them as if people are listening. Like, I'm supposed to put up this good face. Like of course I'd do the right thing. But honestly, sometimes it's tempting to do the thing that benefits me, even though it's wrong, when no one's looking. And sometimes it's really tempting just to go along with all the other voices because everyone's looking. Now, I want to jump back to how we all started. Is like, what is the will of God? Like, what exactly is it? What does God want us to do? Matthew 7:21, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. It's the one who does the will of the Father. It's the one who listens to God. But what does he want us to do? I mean, if it's not those good things, if it's not prophesying or casting out demons or performing miracles, like, what does he want us to do? And the great thing about scripture is that he actually tells us what he wants us to do. He gives us the outline of says, it's not about those things, but if you want to know the will of the Father, this is what it is. John 6:40, for my Father's will is that everyone who looks to the Son and believes in him shall have eternal life, and I will raise them on the last day. So what's the will of his Father? It's to believe in the one that he has sent. It's to believe in Jesus. You can look other places. John 6:29, the work of God is this, to believe in the one that he has sent. So if you want to do the work that's going to count and not just work that's going to leave you empty, well, then believe in the one that God has sent. Believe in Jesus. It's always about God. It's always about Jesus. That's what it all comes back to. It's not about how much you can do or how much you have done, because honestly, you can only bring yourself so far, and even the distance that you do bring yourself isn't that impressive, especially when we're faced with those storms in our lives. And here's something about the storm. It doesn't care if you're a foolish man or a wise man. The storm is going to come to you. It doesn't care who you are. And knowing who God is, trusting in him and believing in him, that doesn't stop the storms from coming into your life. The storm is still going to come to you because, again, God makes the sun rise on the believer and the non-believer. God will bring a storm whether you believe or not. But this is what I can guarantee. I can guarantee that the storm is going to come, but when that storm comes, and if you believe and trust in who God is, you are going to get through it. You're going to find a way to find hope in those storms and prevail. Just like the wise man who built his house on the rock. When the storm came, sure, it wasn't easy. Sure, it was hard, but he saw through it. He got through it because what his foundation was built on. And if your foundation is on God, you will get through those storms. Not that storms won't come, but you will get through them. So here's my final thought. And really ask yourself, when this storm comes, whenever it comes, whatever it might look like, who or what will you lean on to get you through it? Will you crumble or will you stay standing? When your storm comes, it will be tough and you will question and you will doubt. But stay with God. And the more that you build that relationship now, the more you can look back to when those storms come and say, I remember when God was faithful, when he was working, when he was so loud that I couldn't ignore him. Because sometimes in those storms, it'll seem like he's not doing anything, that he's not protecting you. But always remember that God is for you and not against you. If he's willing to die for you, you know that he's on your side. So again, be blessed, guys, and we'll see you later. Bye.